In this video, we're going to be making a no hardware floating shelf. Hey guys, so all you're going to need to make this floating shelf is a piece of crown molding of your choice. The box stores have this primed and poplar and oak. There's lots of choices, lots of sizes. You're going to need a piece of 1x wide enough for your top, and then another piece of 1x for your structure. Now the material for the top, again, can be whatever you want. You're gonna want it to match the molding. This is gonna be painted, so anything white is good for me. And both the 1x and the crown in this case are PVC, so this would make a good shelf for the bathroom since it's gonna be waterproof. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut our crown molding to size, and we're going to do that on the miter box since this is going to get mitered. All right, so this shelf is going to be about 28 inches long, but I want to start by just cutting one miter on one side of this. So this is going to sit like this in this position. So I'm going to cut my first miter this way. And I'm just drawing this here so I don't get confused. And now we're going to go over to the miter box. Okay, so we're over at the miter box now, and this is how this piece is going to sit. This is how the shelf is going to sit. But remember, when you're cutting this on the miter box, what you want to do is do it upside down and backwards. So we're going to first flip it upside down. So we're just going to flip it 180. And then instead of it being like this, we're going to hold it like this to cut it. And then here's my line so that I don't get confused on which way to tilt the miter. So the miter is going to go 45 degrees like that. And remember, you got to keep this nice and flat against the fence. Let me swing the camera around so you can see that. All right, so when you set this into the miter box, you want to make sure it's nice and flat against the top fence and the bottom table. This way you know you're cutting the correct angle on there. If you're not sitting nice and flat, then this angle is going to change and your miters are not going to come out well. So make sure it's nice and flat before you cut it. Okay, so I'm set in my miter box. All right, there we go. All right, so now that we got that cut, I think I want this shelf 28 inches long. So measure from the long side, not the short side, and I'm gonna measure 28 inches. 28 inches, and then I'm gonna draw a line this way so I know which way to cut this, and we're gonna go cut this in the miter box now. All right, so now that I have the front part of my shelf, this is a piece of the leftover from the front, and I'm gonna cut one of the sides. So I just wanna start by putting my mitered edge on here, and then we'll measure for the length. All right, so here's my front piece. It's 28 inches long, and it's gonna sit like this. This is the piece I just cut. It's getting angled like that, and it's gonna sit like this. So I decided I want this shelf to be 4 inches wide. So I am now gonna measure from the point and go back 4 inches and cut a square cut on here now. All right, so I just have to cut the opposite side now, so I'm just gonna mark. All right, so now that the pieces are all cut, I put a little adhesive on the ends here just to help hold it. If you're using wood, you can put a little wood glue and use some painter's tape. Now, I'm going to do one of these with a pin nailer. And a pin nailer is just a nail gun that shoots very small nails that they call pins. But once you get the one pin in there, it makes everything easier. All right, so that's one side. Make sure you're lined up correctly. Okay, so that's looking good. I'm going to wrap the tape around. And then I'm going to add another on the top. And if you're doing this with wood and using wood glue, it only takes about an hour or so for it to set up. All right, so that's all there is to it. We're going to give that a little time to set up, and then we'll start on the other component. Okay, so now that the glue has dried, we're going to measure for both the internal structure, and this is also how we're going to mount this to the wall without any hardware. So we've got about 23 5/8, and we're going to cut this 1x4 to 23 5/8. Okay, now I just want to check for fit before we do the next operation. All right, so that fits pretty nice. So now I'm going to mark the height. So we're going to say right about there, and now we're going to rip this on the table saw. All right, so my full-size table saw has a dado blade stud in it, so I am just going to cut this on a little DeWalt here. So right there looks good, and here we go. All right, so we're going to check that fit one more time. And that looks good. Okay, so I've decided, let me come around the side, that I am going to fill this bottom with the same material I'm using for the top. So I'm just going to hold it in here, and I am going to mark the edge, and we are going to rip it again on the table saw. All right, let's tack this in. Okay, so I messed up a little bit when I put this bottom piece on here, forgetting that the way I'm attaching this to the wall is with a French cleat. So the back needs to go all the way down so that I can have my French cleat system. So I had to recut the back so that I could fit this. Now that's all sorted, so now I'm just going to cut the angle on the back for the French cleat. So let's go do that. All right, so now I'm just setting the angle on the table saw to 30 degrees. I felt like that's a nice angle for a French cleat. And then I have to take the riving knife out of the table saw because I have to do a sort of a plunge cut. So here I'm marking where the blade edges are, because not only is it going to be a plunge cut, but it's going to be a stop-start cut, meaning I'm not cutting it from one end to the other. I'm going to start in the board. So sticking it against the fence here, lining up my lines, going to turn it on, and now I'm going to crank the blade through the board. You can see it's going to start breaking the surface now. and then I'm gonna slide it on through. And then I'm gonna stop at my line that I marked, shut the saw off, and then pull the piece up. And now I'm just finishing the cuts up with a flush trim saw. A pole saw is probably the better option, but this was out already, so I just grabbed it. It's a shortcut, so not too bad. And also this is pine, so it's soft. And now we're just gonna tack it in place with the pin nailer. And then we're going to proceed to mark out the top of the shelf now. So here I'm just going to mark 3/4 of an inch all around, and then trim the top piece to size. Alright, if you watched this far into the video and you feel like you're getting value out of it, please consider subscribing. It really helps the video spread and the channel grow. And as always, it's much appreciated. Alright, so now I have an OG profiling bit set up in the router table, and I'm going to profile both ends and the long side of the shelf. I feel like the OG profile complements the crown molding and gives it a nice visual appeal. So while we are on the router table here, I'm reminded that I'm going to be getting a new router table plate from Speed Tools, and I'll be putting that through its paces, and there'll be a video coming out on that review, so keep an eye out for that. Alright, so that's the OG profile done. Now in this next shot here, I'm sorry about the lighting. It looks like it's dark in my shop, but actually all of the lights are on. It's just the sun's coming in through the window so strong that I guess it messes with the sensor in the camera, and this is what happens. Alright, so we're just finding the studs in the wall. Okay, there's one here. I want this down here somewhere. Here. Alright, so make sure you put the bevel away from the wall like this so that the opposite bevel pulls it closer.